Meanwhile, firefighters from all over Italy were sent to reinforce refuse force. Social media is flooded with the images in dramatic rescue operations. Children begin lifted from rooftops, elderly people begin to carry out throughout the waist deep water, and pain being saved from the daunting. The hashtag Sicilia Scotta Aqua were become popular throughout the country. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed solidarity with the region, promising no community will be left without the help. We will rebuild our support every affected family. Experts warn that the Mediterranean region is becoming increasingly vulnerable to such storm. In the recent report by European Environmental Agency, Sicily was identified as a climate hotspot facing rising sea levels, heat waves, and now extreme rainfall. As the sky begins to clear, attention turned to recover. Damage assessment, no ongoing to questions are being raised about the urban planning drainage system and early warning protocols. But for many Sicilians, healing will take no longer. As a July manga, whose home was destroyed, it said with the tears here years. We survived but not lost everything. Now we have started all over again. Residents found themselves stranded in their homes waiting for rescue teams to arrive. The heat of Italy, Rome and entire city forced in all shared challenges at the Colosseum, an enduring symbol of Rome history, stood the silent weather the raging storm as a rain and wind threatening to erode an incident forecast. Trees turned into rivers and historic positions became waterlogged that caused extensive damage of city infrastructure. Italian authorities renovated their effective response to time of crisis point of action. Emergency service working tirelessly to rescue those trapped in the rising floodwaters and restore essential service. Helicopters, however, over-submerged areas, airlifting residents to safety. The firefighters braved elements to reach those in need. A severe storm hit Sicily, Italy, caused heavy rain, strong winds and widespread flooding in several cities including Palermo and Campania. The extreme weather events, which struck without warning, turned streets into rivers, disrupted transportation and left thousands of residents without electricity and with damaged property. Local authorities issued several weather warnings on the island who received rainfall significantly above the seasonal average. Videos show a dramatic scene where, posted on social media, cars submerged into water, people waist deep water in the floodwaters, and emergency service trying to reach stranded cities. Meteorologists report that the storm deployed rapidly over the Mediterranean Sea under the influence of low pressure system combined into high sea surface temperature, and a phenomenon that is becoming increasingly common due to climate change. Public transportation was severely disrupted, leaving passengers stranded. The coastal area faced to burst with a storm and strong wave crashing against the coastline caused erosions to damage the sea definitions. Emergency services are working around the clock to help those in need. The Italian Red Cross has mobilized a team to support the most affected areas, offering shelters and distributing basic necessities. Refuse operations are ongoing, with the reports of people trapped in their homes due to rising water. Helicopters have been deployed to evacuate those to imminent danger winter. The impact of the storm on agriculture is also a growing concern. Sicily knows the serious growth of vineyard forces potential devastation. Initial estimates suggest significant crops losers with a could have the long-term economic impact of the region farming communities. Italian Prime Minister Conte has experienced solidarity with the affected residents, pledging government aid to resources to support recovery efforts. He praised the resilience of the Sicilian people and terrorist forced rescues. Meteorologists predict severe weather conditions will continue over the next 24 hours and advise residents to remain vigilant. As Sicily struggles with the aftermath and the disaster of focus to ensure the safety of the residents is beginning to arduous task to rebuilding. The full extent of the damage will become clear in the coming days, but for now Sicily is widespread the storm relentless onslaught. As Sicily slowly begins to dry up, the real lesson of the storm is being recovered not only in blizzards but also in dialogue and the growing average in the Mediterranean Sea. One of the candle ice calm sea is sunny skies is becoming of the epicenter of the climate disaster. Experts call this a turning point to the urge Southern European government is invest in the climate resilience. Coastal cities such as Palermo and Campania, densely populated, are reaching a culture heritage, particularly vulnerable to rising sea levels, increasing rainfall to heat waves. The Mediterranean Sea is warming 20% faster than the global average, said Dr. Elena Morandi, the climate researcher of University of Rome. This storm was not a fluke. This is part of the trend we are seeing more intense, more frequent, more destructive. International observers from UNESCO have experienced concerns about Sicily historical monuments, many of which were flooded or damaged during this storm. The Brockway treacherous of Noto and ancient Greek ruins, a still nude and new part of the parts surrounding Mount Etna were affected. The Italian city of Palermo was left in shock after the severe storm swept through the Sicilian capital, bringing torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and flash floods that paralyzed the city. Within hours, streets turned into raging rivers, swept away across the trapped residents in their homes. Emergency services were inundated with the cold, rescued dozens of people from flooded cars in the basement. It was like a waterfall rushing throughout the streets, said a local shopkeeper. Describe it now if the store was destroyed in minutes. Hospitals reported an influx of potent safety from the injured and hypothermia. Authorities confirmed several casualties and thousands of people were left without power as the power lines collapsed under the weight of fallen trees. The city historic districts, usually bustling with the tourists, were usually empty as residents hid in their homes. The storm also disrupted vital infrastructure. Palermo Airport temporarily suspended flights and ferry service were halted due to wave crashed onto the coast. In rural area around the city, farmland was destroyed onto olive groves and vineyards were flooded, raising fears of significant losses to agriculture. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the warm water of the Mediterranean Sea, which follow unstable air masses. Conditions likely to the border effects of the climate change. Italy's civil protection agency warned that extreme weather conditions are becoming the new normal and they call it to mandate investment to flood protection and the early warning system. Local authorities declared a state of emergency and the government promising to allocate funds to deal with the aftermath of the national disaster. Volunteers joined to brigade the police to clear blocked roads, but recovery expected to take weeks to even months. was left standing after extraordinary hailstorm turned in the Athol city into the local described the sudden winter in September. Streets across the capital, including area near the Colosseum and a piece of Venice, were blanketed a thick layer of ice, disrupting traffic and caused widespread astonishment. The violent storm struck with a little warning, planted the city with a hailstorm the size of a walnut. Within minutes, the rain were overwhelmed, leaving the flash flood in low-lying districts. Motorists were forced to abandon cars and ice storms swept through the several outages, while public buses struggled to navigate blocked roads. Emergency service reported dozens of calls to assistance. Firefighters were deployed to clear fallen branches and rescue drivers trapped to flooded in underpasses. No fatalities were confirmed, but several minor injuries occurred as people slipped on the ice-coated pavement. One resident told local media, "I lived in Rome 40 years. I never seen hell like this. I felt that the city had been dropped into another season." Meteorologists explained that the year was triggered by a clash of warm Mediterranean air with a powerful cold front from the northern Europe, creating ideal conditions for the hail formations. Businesses and restaurants suffered significant losses as water and ice flooding basements and outdoor terraces. The city farm landmarks from the Colosseum to Pisa Novara, the brilliantly unrecognized shady streets of hail. Agriculture areas surrounding Rome also reported heavy damage. Farmers in Lazio said crops and grapes, olives and artichokes were devastated. Climatologists warned that such sudden and destructive storms are becoming more common across southern Europe due to climate change. The Mediterranean basin is heating faster on the global average, explained Dr. Lena Moretti of Italy National Meteorological Institute. This increases the energy available to violent thunderstorms. As cleanup operations continue, the city faces millions in damage and the stark warning about the vulnerable to extreme weather. The storm throat lesson test 1 hour will likely be remembered as one of Rome's most severe hail events in the decades. Rome, Italy. Rome was thrown into chaos as a sudden violent hailstorm struck at the city, transforming its cobblestone streets into rivers of ice and leaving a scene of destruction and astonishment. The storm arrived without warning late in the afternoon, bringing hailstones the size of large coins, thunder, lightning, and torrential rain. Meteorologists from Italy's National Meteorological Agency described the phenomenon as one of the most intense collective storms to hit the Lazio region in recent years. Senior meteorologist Dr. Elena Moretti stated, "The combination of extreme heat and the sudden cold front triggered explosive atmospheric instability. Within the minutes, the sky darkened, and a hail pounded the city with a different force. Vehicles were damaged, white shields shattered, and roofs became impossible under a layer of ice. Fire departments received over 1,400 emergency calls, responded to rescue trapped drivers and pump out water from subway station and underground parking garage. Rome Civil Protection Agency urged residents to stay indoors and flash flood hits the San Giovanni transfer rail. This is a classic Mediterranean instability event, explained Dr. Elisa Conti from Italy's National Weather Service. His atmosphere were loaded in energy, and when it broke, the rainfall was explosive. A severe hailstorm swept across the northern Italy, battered cities from Milan to Bologna, with ice stones the size of a tennis ball and leaving a trail of destruction across the region. The storm, which broke out late on Wednesday evening, turned streets into rivers and the ice and causing chaos in that meteorologists describe it as one of the most severe hailstorms in the Italy's recent history. Residents of Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna described scenes of panic and thunder rumble overhead and a huge hailstorm pounded through cars and crops. It felt like the sky was falling, said Franessa Rossi, a resident of Parma. The noise was different. We thought the window would explode. Local authority reported hundreds of emergency calls. Firefighters worked through the night and rescue standard motorists to clear fallen trees. In Bergamo, entire neighborhoods were left without power, and strong winds and ice built up damaged power lines.
Esta es la estación de la Garena.
Emergency service received hundreds of calls when in the first hour, firefighters walked into the night and cleared fallen branches and rescued drivers trapped in flooding underpasses. Several metro lines were temporarily suspended as a hail pile up on the tracks and Athens. Businesses and coffee separate losers and a witness capable under the city wave. It looked like a snow, but it was sharp ice, said cafe owner Luca Bianchi. We had never seen anything like this in October. Experts said that the storm reflects growing patterns of extreme weather across southern Europe. Climate instability is intensifying, warning climatologist Professor Gianni Conti. Long location between the Mediterranean and Apennines make it especially vulnerable to these sudden events. The storm also disrupted air and sea traffic. Flights and a Falcon-Belsky airport were delayed and diverted due to strong crosswind, and a ferry service connecting Sicily to Naples and Cagliari were temporarily suspended. Meteorologists from the Italy Air Force where the service explained that the storm was triggered by a low-pressure system moving North Africa, cold with warm air, humid air from the Mediterranean, apart from the intensified due to rising sea temperatures. Local officials warning that more severe weather will follow. The storms are becoming stronger and more frequent, said Major Roberto Lagala. We must adapt our infrastructure and changing climate. By early morning, the storm has moved eastward, leaving behind the mud-stretched streets, debris at the damaged vehicles. Volunteers joined fighters in clear efforts with the local characters provided to aid families to lost belongings. This event notes at Sacramento how South Italy, in a front line of Europe's shifting climate where sudden storms, flash flood, and recovered heat waves are now part of daily life. Events like these are increasingly frequent and intense due to climate change, warning the Dr. Sofia Romano, climatologist of the University of Rome. Historic sites were not spared. Pisa, Navona, and Campo de Flori was underwater. Fire protective measures were quickly deployed of the Colosseum and Roman Forum to prevent damage to existing structure. Nearby tourist soft shelters under the coffee summits of the lighting up the stormy sky. Power outage affected thousands of homes, and local authority urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel. Schools in the most affected districts were closed for the remainder of the day. Insurance companies have already begun assistance to extensive property damage, with a preliminary estimate to reach millions of euros. Rome Major Roberto Gualtieri praised the rapid response of emergency crews and emphasizing civil vulnerability and increasingly extreme weather. "We must strengthen our infrastructure and preparedness," he said, as the storm subsided. Local emergency to assess the damage, swept debris for the streets and helped stranded vehicles. Despite the chaos, Romans remain resilient. "Rome has seen centuries of storm," said Mourning County, a resident, "when during we rebuild and life goes on."
Club del Sole, adesso è il Club del Vento.
Sicily, Italy. Torrential rain here unleashed devastation flood across Sicily, leaving towns submerged, roads impossible, and thousands without. Palermo, Italy. A powerful storm swept through the Sicilian capital overnight, unleashed torrential rain, violent winds, and lifting parts and plunged parts of the city into chaos. The downpour, which began late Sunday, lasted several hours of flooded major roads, homes, and businesses across Palermo and nearly town. According to the Italy Severe Protection Agency, over 19 millimeters of rain fell in 2 hours. One of the hardest rainfall recorded in recent years. The city and the drainage system was quickly overwhelmed, tuning main arteries with the valley region, Sicily, and the fast-flowing rivers. Cars were seen drifting through the streets and emergency crews raising their rescue standing drivers. "It was like a waterflow pouring from the sky," said resident Giovanni Bianchi. "Those ground flood apartment was submerged. I lived these 40 years and never seen rain like this." Authorities reported dozens of emergency interests from the clearing fallen trees and rescue elderly residents trapped flooded buildings. Several neighboring, including Sierra Montsetta and Partinico, suffered blackouts after lightning strikes damaged power lines. Power.
Guardate ragazzi! Guardate un po'! Guardate un po' ragazzi! Sono amico!
In a matter of hours, violent downpour transformed streets into raging rivers, swept away cars and flooded homes from Palermo to Catania. Local officials described the event as one of the most intense storms in recent years. Firefighters conducted over 400 emergency operations overnight, rescued stunted residents trapped in vehicles and basements. In Palermo, torrents of water surged through the historic center, flooded the city main boulevard, Via Roma, and submerged parts of the central train station. "It was like watching the sea evade the city," said residents. Maria Lombarda, close ground floor shop was destroyed within minutes. In Catania, severe flash floods overwhelmed the drainage system, while nearby villages such as Geri and Acriville forced landslides that cut off entire communities. The regional civil protection agency issued a red alert. Italy highest warning level urged residents to stay indoors and avoid travel. Helicopters from the fire brigade were deployed to monitor rising river levels, particularly along the Semita rivers where nearly overwhelmed these banks.
Mai vista? Mai vista una roba così?
A violent storm swept through Palermo, Sicily, late Monday night, unleashed torrential rain, violent winds, and powerful lightning strikes that brought the historic city to near its standstill. Within just 2 hours, rainfall levels exceeded those typical seen in entire month, tuning roads into raging rivers and trapped dozens of motorists in submerged tunnels. Emergency service declared a state of alert. Firefighters carried out more than 500 rescue operations across the metropolitan area. Cars were swept away in Via Leonardo Leonardo da Vinci. After the city burst roads, the residents scampered the high ground as water poured the basement of a ground floor apartment. It was terrified, said local resident Maria Conti. The thunder shook in windows in a minute and the streets outside became a river. We could even open the door against the water pre-show. Authority temporarily closed Palermo Falcone Belsicato Airport. At a crosswide exceeded 19 km/h, made the landslide unsafe. Power outages were reported in Ostia, said Giovanni, and a motor rail by falling branches and lightly struck damaged power lines. Meteorologists from Arpa, Lazio, confirmed from the event was caused by explosion mixture from warm Mediterranean air cooling with a cold northern front. Such extreme hailstorms were previously rare in central Italy, said Dr. Gianni Bellini, a climatologist. But we are seeing a clear increase in the frequency and intensity, a direct signal of climate warning. The hailstorms did not spur the city landmark hail accumulated near the Colosseum, tuning the ants dance amplifier with the surreal white ring with the tourist soul shelters under the 8. St. Peter's Square glistened with the ice, and drainage system could not cope with the flood, inundating parts and vacation. That the wind uprooted trees, damaged roofs, and caused partial power outage in some areas and Veneto region. The city transport network was paralyzed, but buses were suspended and several bridges were temporarily closed due to high water levels. Meteorologists said the storm was fueled the powerful low-pressure system that swept across southern Europe during the most unstable air from the Mediterranean Sea. As a result, more than 120 millimeters of rainfall in few hours, half of Venice's normal monthly rainfall. Environmental groups have again warned that climate change is exacerbating extreme weather events across Italy. Venice is not a far front to the climate crisis, say meteorologist Luca Moretti. Without district action, this flooding will only get worse. As the storm subsides, the clean begin that the forces are not yet devastation flood severe as a painful reminder of Venice's fragile struggle with the sea. A sudden and intense hailstorm swept across Sicily on a Tuesday afternoon, leaving streets submerged, vehicles damaged, and residents scrambling for the shelter. Meteorologists reported that the storm was followed by warm Mediterranean air cooling with a cold front from the north, causing heavy rainfall, hailstorms up to gulf both sides, and strong winds had battered to the island. Palermo, Campania, and Messina were among the hardest hit cities. Streets quickly flooded and traffic came to standstill, and a heat shattered car windows and dented rooftops. "I've never seen hail like this in my life," said Giuliano Marino, a local shop owner in Palermo. "The noise was different, and water was rising within minutes." The protest zone, Sicily Civil Protection Authority received hundreds of emergency calls for stranded motorists, fallen trees, and damaged properties. Several small rivers in province overflowed, forced temporary evacuation in low-lying neighborhoods. Minor injuries were trapped from slip and a hail impact. Agriculture area also suffered significant losses. In the Ostia, a coastal suburbs of Rome wake up to 2-meter high crashed onto Cyprus, damaged several beach establishments that had already been waked by previous storm. Climatologist Dr. Alexandra Conte and La Sapienza University noted that the storm reflects one alert trend. Italy is experiencing increasingly severe weather conditions due to climate instability, she said. Warmers say the more humid air contributed. The storm that used to occur once a decade but now happen every few months. Exhausted residents took the streets and saw mud-broken glass and broken branches scattered across a once bustling boulevard. Cleanup crews walked tirelessly as the city slowly returned to life, but memories of the storm lingered. Rome is strong, said a resident near the Pentagon as she washed water from the duster, but the nature reminds who was above.